Yo, YouTube, this is the Unexpected Wonder. Y'all already know. For those who don't know me, um, I've said it before and I'll say it again. I'm a user who will make a wide variety of videos. And this installment of my video making, I don't know what you want to call it, my catalog, I guess, is if you can read the title, hopefully you're literate, is about the differences between hard rock and heavy metal. And let me just deal with this. Starting off with, now some people believe these two genres of rock are the same thing. That is not the case. Some people believe that heavy metal or hard rock is more of an American version and the other one is maybe, say, a British version. Again, not the case. I'm dealing with misconceptions here. Some say heavy metal is, it's just an offspring, an offshoot of hard rock. Now, it did come after, but it is not, it is different. Not, it's not just because it's, just because it came later makes it a offspring or offshoot. Because hard rock actually, for example, heavy metal sort of mellowed out and became metal. I wouldn't say mellowed out, but it became a less harsh, a less, I wouldn't say loud, I'm trying to figure out the words, a less obvious sound, and it kind of split, and well, I don't know, it split. Let me just put it this way, I'm trying to find the words to describe it. Heavy metal split between metal, death metal, and a whole bunch of other genres. It took a split. Hard rock continued. Now it had somewhat combinations with other genres, but hard rock is still around with groups. It lasted because of group AC/DC. To this day, 3 Days Grace, they've put out some hard rock. Even though I'm not really a fan of Nickelback, they've had some in different groups, throughout the post grunge era of the mid to late 90s to the early to mid 2000s. So hard rock still is around. Heavy metal, I don't really think you find any heavy metal bands or really many heavy metal songs, if any, in this day and age. Alright, now let's get to, in comparison, why do people think they're the same? Well, first of all, you deal with the mysticism. I mean, there's a lot of, folklore and a lot of mythology involved, and, some may call religion, whatever, faith-based themes. There's also the fact of, the styles are somewhat similar because of the era that they came out with. I mean, they both, I'll explain, okay, let me explain how hard rock, like, where its roots. Hard rock is, blues was huge. You hear it in the bass plate. Blues was a huge influence. To some degree, psychedelic rock was played a major part in the expansion of the themes and the where can music go. I can get into psychedelic rock, acid rock, the importance of it, but that's for another time. Hard rock was also, it was something of its own. It made its own flavor. At times it incorporates, southern rock as the 70s hit. It's a combination of things to make it a unique sound. Let me just put it that way. So I would say the main three, you could add rock and roll. So I say the main four foundations were definitely blues, a bit psychedelic acid rock, some southern rock during the 70s, and rock and roll. Rock and roll was, obviously there for the longest time during the early periods of rock history. So, but with heavy metal, heavy metal is kind of hard to describe how it just came about. And yeah, even though it sounds hard rock, and I guess I'm getting to the differences. Hard rock, heavy metal as opposed to hard rock. Heavy metal is a clear cut, you know, somewhat of a deafening doom. Like they both can be loud, but heavy metal, it needs is the volume. That's the first thing you'll notice about a heavy metal song. The volume. You know, it's a slower thing than hard rock. Hard rock, you know, when it gets in the rest of heavy metal, dun, 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 dun. The tempo is obviously slower than hard rock. Heavy metal, it like psychedelic rock, but in a different manner. It pushes things to the next level. It expands, like it's an expansion. It can go into taboo things. Hard rock can be more acceptable mainstream. Heavy metal, some said rock and roll was the devil's music. Heavy metal, some would consider devil's music, and more that might not necessarily be the case. But heavy metal, you either like it or you don't. There's no way around it. Okay, it is. Hard rock is more mainstream. I'm not saying hard rock is a sellout, but hard rock is way more mainstream than heavy metal is. And so when you look at the two, and there's probably more you can get into it, naked picking, but I mean they sound so similar that it's really hard to differentiate. But the best way I can differentiate, and this is my last point, is you look at the definitive bands who really, you can't necessarily say they were the first of the two genres, but you can definitely say that they took the genres to the highest highs it's probably ever been. That's why they're definitive, the epitome. And what are those bands of hard rock? It is by far, without a doubt, Led Zeppelin. Zeppelin did work. Okay, Zeppelin, my goodness, Lord knows, Zeppelin, I don't know how many songs. I mean, their whole vibe, just everything about them, the fact that they didn't even I hear they didn't really do interviews. I'm not that old, so I don't know. They just put their music straight on the album, let the album speak for itself, and where they take songs, and it can be so interpretive, but at the same time, it's a story. Okay, that's the thing about it. Hard rock is seriously a story. I mentioned the bands. I mentioned AC/DC. Okay, they tell the lead singer tells stories. Okay, forget his name at this time. You know, 3 Days Grace. Adam Gontier tells stories. Chad, whatever his name is, Code, whatever, of Nickelback. They tell stories in their songs. Okay, it's storytelling music, and the music goes along with the story. It's kind of a classical music vibe there with that. Heavy metal, on the other hand, the definitive band, I don't care what anybody says, is Black Sabbath, and I'm talking about with Ozzy Osbourne in the 70s. Okay, I'm not so much talking about Dio. He was more metal. Now, he did some heavy metal, don't get me wrong, but it was definitely more metal. Okay, just listen to music and you'll understand what I'm saying. You know, when Black Sabbath dropped, definitely, you know, it definitely was ushered in a new era. But when Paranoid, I'm talking Black Sabbath the album, but when Paranoid dropped, just listen, the opening song, War Pigs, just dun. That's what I was mainly doing with that. Dun 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 dun. If you just listen to the Paranoid album, and then Paranoid, the song, Iron Man, just listen to just those three songs. I mean, they do have Planet Caravan. It does have some psychedelic elements, psychedelic rock elements to it. But War Pigs, War Pigs, Iron Man, and Paranoid, okay? And shoot, you know, probably what? Was Snowblind, did he do that with Sabbath? I can't remember at this point if he did it. But if you listen to the Black Sabbath album and you listen to the Paranoid album, as opposed to say some the different Led Zeppelin albums, the four, the different ones. You just listen to them, and you see an obvious difference. Now, obviously, they go into other genres as well. I'm not limited to them, but you listen to them. They're the definitive bands. So that's all it really needs to say. They're the definition. So really, and synopsis of all this, hard rock is the differences between hard rock and heavy metal. Hard rock is more acceptable mainstream. Hard rock, heavy metal has a louder, slower tempo, and I forget my other point, but I mean, it's a toss up. It's really personal preference. Oh yeah, personal preference, you know. But hell, I love both, obviously. That's what I'm talking about. I hope y'all have a beautiful day, and I hope this was somewhat insightful and cleared up some. If not, comment below, and maybe I can talk with y'all. You know, you can have discussions below. I love to hear y'all thoughts. You know, show me some more heavy metal and hard rock bands. All right, y'all. Peace out.